My name is Rose Roscoe. I'm an occupational therapist and assistive technology specialist for the Special Ed Tech Center. And I'm here with the director today, Kristen. I'll let her introduce herself.
I am Kristen Leslie, the director of the Special Ed Tech Center and longtime OT, AT specialist.
All right. And my background is I've worked in schools for 35 years. So I'm very familiar with not just, caseloads of students, but working on the system of schools and education and how do we get traction on some of these things that we need to work on. Basically, the outline, what we want to accomplish today is we want to talk about how do you engage all students during instruction, because we can have all kinds of ideas for them, but if they're not engaged, that's the first step in their learning. And we want to, talk about how accessibility is the key for inclusion. And then the main part of, and the purpose for today is to introduce SETSI's new self-paced e-learning series called Accessible Content for All. And we're going to be showing you highlights of different parts of that course, which is on an OER Commons website, Open Educational Resources, which means it's open to everybody. It's free. You can share it with whoever you want. And then we'll talk later about there is a way to get clock hours too. And hopefully we're going to insert some classroom stories, both some videos we have, our stories, and we want to hear your stories throughout the presentation. We have a great combination of people here. And we hope that many of you are going to be talking more with your general ed folks. I see we have an ed tech administrator here. That's awesome. A trainer. It's probably some other gen ed people. So good deal. Let's go back. Okay.
All right. So I want you to think back to fifth grade. Put yourself in that fifth grade classroom. Hopefully we don't traumatize anybody here, but think of yourself as a fifth grader. And today I'm your fifth grade teacher. And today, class, we are learning about migration. We talked about it some yesterday. Today, I want you to open your textbooks to page 89. You're going to be reading an article on geese migration. And you've got a worksheet in front of you that has 3 questions. Do geese know how to migrate on their own, or do they learn from their parents? I want you to write down an interesting fact you learned from the article. And then, where do geese go? Find those things out in the article. And if there's any words that you're unfamiliar with as you read, you can feel free to jot that down on the paper and then we could discuss it. So if you were truly a fifth grade classroom today, we would know that about 1 in 5 of you have a learning disability, and most commonly dyslexia. So you'd have trouble accessing that text, right? We know that after COVID, half of all students were behind in one grade level or another. We know that right now, about 50.7 students in Washington State are meeting ELA standards. So some, maybe they're not diagnosed with a learning disability, but behind in grade level, having trouble accessing that fifth grade text. We know that about 135,000 students in Washington are English language learners and may not be able to access that textbook. According to the Center for Disease Control, we know that about 13% of students around that age have ADHD, and so might have trouble focusing on the task at hand. There may be some of you who are reading above grade level and cruise right through that assignment also. And there may be 1 or 2 of you with a more significant disability, a cognitive difference, visual or hearing impairment, or a physical disability. So the point being, classrooms are diverse, right? We have students with many different abilities. So I want you to think about, on the next slide, Rose, take a moment to just think about, we'll take 2 minutes, think about it, type it in the chat. How can students engage in this lesson in diverse ways? In what ways might technology be used in the classroom in this lesson to provide a more inclusive learning experience? All right. I'm seeing text to speech, speech to text, listen to the text, work in partners, videos about the content. Again, watch a video about the content, using AAC, so communication devices, to maybe respond, right, to that worksheet. Again, read text at their level and guided reading strips. We have sentence stems, word banks for comprehension, translations for ELA students. And that's what this session's all about. How do we make lessons and educational experiences more diverse. Some of the things you brought up may have dealt with ways to engage students, right? Think about that diverse group of students and building relevance. Perhaps some of those students have migrated themselves and have their own stories. What if students were able to choose what animal? There's different animals that migrate. Study an animal. I think of my own son. We were watching the hummingbirds all summer come and go. He would be very engaged in talking about and learning about how they migrate. So building that relevance to students, either locally or culturally, can be a way to engage them. The things you talked about spoke to alternative tools and scaffolds, those word banks, guided reading strips, scaffolding that assignment, and then choices. You also were giving lots of different ways they could engage in the content. You also were talking about different ways they could access the content. Videos, could they watch a video to help build that prior knowledge for them? Could they listen to the text? Could they even listen to a podcast about geese migration? Believe it or not, there's podcasts about geese migration. Students can decide if they want to enjoy listening, reading, or watching to learn the content. Then I also saw that you were giving ideas around different ways for them to express their ideas, express their learning through the speech to text, right? But could a student draw about what they're learning? Could they use something like Book Creator, which allows you to add pictures, type, speak, even different languages in Book Creator, so that students have different ways to respond. And it's not about having endless choices for receiving the information and expressing, but having some choices that then address the diversity in your classroom for a more inclusive experience.
I want to just kick this off with a classroom story, and this should be relatable to many of you. So let's talk about, what does text-to-speech look like in the classroom?
So in class today, we're going to continue on our research on Alberta's natural region. Remember, you've got your region that you're researching, and we have access to the Alberta Naturally website. You may want to read together with a partner, or you may want to use text-to-speech to listen to the text as you go. In my classroom, I make use of a text-to-speech software that allows the students to highlight text and then hear it if they can't read it themselves. We have a site license, so we've put it on every device that we have in the school, including our teacher desktops. And it's simply an icon that the students open up. It brings up a small box in the corner of the screen for them. And as they're bringing up either a PDF of a textbook or they're on a website, they can simply take their cursor, highlight a chunk of text, click the read button, and as long as they have a headset in or they've got their laptop speakers turned on, it will then read the text to them aloud.
Vast continental glaciers scoured northern Alberta and then retreated.
I was on a website with lots of words, and I highlight a bit of the words and I pressed the button that said read, and it read it all for me.
A lot of kids who have trouble decoding like to use text-to-speech, because listening to it is much easier than having for them to labor in reading and trying to decode, where they often just focus on decoding and they're not comprehending.
Reading the social textbook with the tool is way easier than reading it without, because I'm not that strong of a reader.
In our classrooms, I feel that learner preference is a big driver of how we teach, because our students need to be.
Okay, I'm not going to show you the whole 4 minutes, but you guys got a good idea from that. How it would look in the classroom if a teacher just naturally offered speech to text as a choice and embedded that, because so many kinds of students can benefit from that.
84% of teachers say it's impossible to achieve equity in education without accessible learning tools, but I think we are experiencing this to be true. And so instructional strategies paired with technology then set the stage for inclusive learning environments. And we're moving away from providing accessibility just based on necessity, or that it's in the IEP or in that 504, but thinking of, we have diverse learners that don't all have IEPs or 504s also. So let's provide these accessibility tools.
What is accessibility? This is a great actually, it's a picture right from a website that's called CAST, Center for Applied Special Technologies. And they talk about accessibility as a person with a disability can acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, and enjoy the same services in an equally effective, equally integrated manner, with substantially equivalent ease of use as a person without a disability. So how do you level that playing field so that it's not such a struggle and there's not all these barriers for people with disabilities? We really want to insert tools and accessibility supports up front as much as possible so the same opportunities are there for everyone. So what you've seen in the last few slides is our why. Due to all these reasons, this is why we created our online course. Anyone else have ideas or want to speak up?
I'm seeing worksheet accessibility being an issue.
Ah,
Not having an electronic format so that it's hard to use the read aloud unless you have a reading pen.
not enough para support. Yeah, that's a barrier sometimes for students. Student speech isn't being recognized by the app. So sometimes you want to use speech to text, but the technology isn't good enough to make that successful yet. Good. Attention deficit, background knowledge, embarrassment in the curriculum. So there's lots of barriers there for students. So thank you. Great job on that. And then we have one more question before we head into the actual content of the e-learning course. Again, for the why are accessible materials important for inclusive classrooms? And again, go back to the Menti if you're comfortable, or the chat window. I'll have them both open here. Why are accessible materials important for inclusive classrooms? When you go back to your school districts tomorrow, what are you going to tell somebody? Why is it so important that, you know, you want to take this course, or that we need to have that accessibility? Equity, absolutely. Great. Classroom community, I love it. So make sure everyone's included and feels like they belong in the classroom. Equal access creates community. Yep, we just said that. Good. Several people have the same ideas here. Belonging, increased sense of belonging, so everyone can be included and can learn together. It's so important that we advocate for all students to be able to have these opportunities. Culture, exactly. Sometimes it's not even about disability, but because of a different culture or language, students might be excluded or not have access to the curriculum. So what we're learning will make it accessible for everyone. Awesome. Acceptance, learning, making progress, opportunities. So hopefully you're feeling like, okay, this is really important. And when you go back to share with others, you can cite some of these same ideas. What we did is we created this online e-course because we can do webinars like this. And we're so excited to have a good turnout today. I think like 21 people or something are here. But what about all the other people that would love to come, but this time didn't work for them today? So we're really trying to answer the need to have more on-demand courses that work with your schedule and your colleague's schedule. So here is what we did. We created these self-paced modules to learn more about accessible educational materials, including things like read aloud tools or text-to-speech, which we've talked about already today, closed captioning and translation tools. We talked about ELL needs, and then all kinds of tools to implement and how do we make this happen. And mostly we really wanted to give an opportunity for you to create your own learning journey toward building accessibility, equity, and engagement in your classroom. And you've named all those things already in our discussion on the Menti for your why. And creating your own journey may be that you take some other people with you and you form a little study group that does this together. So let's go ahead and take a look. We're ready to dive in. Basically, the course content, we have an intro page with kind of the table of contents, but here's the main topic areas. We talk about AIM, which stands for Accessible Educational Materials. So in general, if you haven't been introduced to AIM or other people on your team aren't familiar, this kind of gives an overview of what that is, and has some great videos about that as well. And then always starting with what are the built-in accessibility features for your district? Are you Microsoft? Are you Google Chrome? Are you iOS and Apple? So make sure we know all those things that are already built in that everyone should have access to now. And then we have a whole section dedicated to read aloud. So hopefully a lot of you will want to dig into that and may know a lot of it already. But again, here's a way for you to share it with other people in your district. Even if you know it, you might want to be able to share it. A whole thing about providing access to digital books. Think about the barrier with the printed book. Even just ebooks. Sometimes the ebook, you can see it, but it doesn't read back necessarily. So an accessible digital book is really a huge piece in making sure there's accessibility to the curriculum. So this is, I think, one of the most important areas is this. And then, okay, if we have printed text, how do you convert that into accessible text? Whole section on that. We're really getting into closed captioning and just captioning in general now, and how that's so important for all kinds of different people with different needs. And should we make that part of our everyday practice? Absolutely, whenever possible. And then translation tools, designing accessible documents. So as a teacher or educator, when you're creating content, are you making sure that content is accessible up front? We have some great tips here for you on that. Again, just touching on the writing tools for expression, like what Kristen talked about earlier. And then these are kind of more administrative now, getting into digital accessibility requirements. So if you're working with your district IT department and they're looking at the website and some of those kind of things, there's some good things to know here. And then here's a couple forms that SETC has created that will help you look into your own district's technology accessibility profile. And we also have a checklist. Are you providing accessible educational materials? Here's a way for you to take a look and maybe get an idea where you're at. So that's kind of the quick overview just by topic. So now I'm going to actually jump in, and I've kind of divided these slides into 4 sections. So AIM and built-in accessibility. I'm going to show you what that looks like in the class, and then just give you a couple highlights in a video. So here's the front page, and then we start off with an overview of the course. There's the modules we just talked about. These are all interactive, so you can jump to any of these pages within the course. And then also, if you prefer not to have the visual, but to have just kind of sequential text with links, these are a quick description of all the modules this way. So that's what the first page looks like. And then we talk about what does AIM look like? An introduction to accessible educational materials. And we have some videos there. So we try to go between some content, some links, some videos. And then what does this look like in my classroom? For almost every section, I think we tried to do a video, and we'll be showing you some of these. And then kind of reflection time. What's one action you can take to improve accessibility of AIM in your district? And then as part of the self-reflection, what level do you think you're at? Overview, explore, or application? And I give you kind of an example of what those are. And then also for every section, we added a glossary of terms. So if there's things that you or your colleagues aren't familiar with, we tried to put in some definitions. So this is kind of a general idea of what each section looks like. And I'm going to show you one other one in this section is built-in accessibility tools across platforms. So again, these are just meant to give you an idea what's in the class, and you can dive into this deeper later. But we always try to say, what is it? What's our learning objective here? Learning about it. In this section, there's also a way to try out, okay, maybe I know the Microsoft tools, but I'm not familiar with the Google or the Apple tools. So you could go and explore either more of the ones you have in your district or try, learn a new tool. You can talk about learning management systems. And again, what would this look like in my classroom, and reflection. So one form I wanted to show you guys for a highlight on this section was 8 tips. Here we go. We created for SETC another form called 8 tips to make curriculum content accessible. And this is kind of a fun infographic that might be something you could print or share with people. It's just kind of as a first step looking at accessible curriculum. And basically these 8 points are integrated in the whole online course. We just kind of redesigned it to be more robust, but it's just kind of a fun launch point to just giving someone a quick intro to these 8 tips. Like, okay, I showed you the tips. There's a classroom story.
Grace always said, my personal motto is blind can do anything.
I'm going higher here.
If she wants to do something, she figures out a way to do it. We never, ever made a big deal about her being blind. I wanted to always raise her like, you can do anything anybody else does. We just might need to figure out a way to do it differently. Going into her school years, Grace has always wanted to just keep right up with her sighted peers and do what they're doing.
I'm in the 5th grade of Village Elementary School. It's completely an open school for everybody.
Grace is in the general education classroom because she can do all of the same work as her general education peers, and we want her to be able to show that.
For many years, she has been able to do the lessons, but she's had multiple pieces of equipment. She often had to have an aide read to her.
When Grace doesn't have access to the same things as all the other kids, it really does frustrate her.
I can't just go get a pencil and paper. I have to use special technology that produces Braille and that speaks. Open classroom.
It's been really exciting to see what technology can do for her. This year in 5th grade, she's using Google Classroom, and it has just opened up a whole world for her.
Lesson 12, new assignment document contents. Double tap to edit.
Now, when I give an assignment, it's kind of a seamless transition.
She's able to get the same assignment they're getting at the very same time.
And it feels nice not to be like, oh, she's a special kid. We gotta do everything different just for her.
This has been a game changer. Her confidence level has really gone through the roof because she feels like she's able to keep up and that she has something comparable to what her peers are using.
Grace enriches this class beyond compare. And it means so much for me that she is truly included in every aspect of our classroom.
I like this day and age where there's like no segregation. I want to make the world know that blindness isn't a tragedy. This is who I am, and I love the way I am.
Okay, Julie says, I'm already thinking about certain students that this would be a game changer for. Nice. Oh, Karen says she felt like she belonged. Okay, talking about the video. She felt like she belonged. Her studies weren't segregated like many of our special ed classes. Okay, takeaway. So that might be something you want to share with others. Elisa says, finding the right staff members who are willing to try something new is key. Yeah, sometimes we have ideas on what we want to do, but how do we find a pacing partner, somebody that's willing to take a risk and try that new thing with us, and then model that for others? So great ideas, you guys. Thanks. So now we're going to look at read aloud in digital books. One other cool thing about these modules is you can see at the top here, if you do a pull down, I can jump to any of the modules right here. So if I don't always have to start at the beginning and scroll forward one at a time. So if we want to go to section 4, I just click there. And that section is called Assuring Digital Content Can Be Read Aloud. So again, have an overview, an objective. There's the 8 tip sheet. And I keep referring to this because this section is looking more deeply at tip number 3 on that sheet. And then we try to always start with the idea of what are read aloud tools that are available to everybody, like the built-in tools, right, that are in the systems, and what's free, because a lot of districts may not have paid tools. So we always show that first. And I also try to include the resources from each platform so that we're not just focusing on one platform. Even Android, right, has some resources built in because not everyone has an iPhone. And then here's some great quick videos. A lot of these are just 2-minute videos, like how to use the free read aloud tools built into web browsers. I was just talking to someone today that's trying to use and promote the Edge browser as a read aloud tool in her district. And so that might be one focus you have. And there's the thing on the Edge browser right there. And then here, if you want to, maybe some of you might have some paid tools like Snap and Read, Read and Write. We tried to show some of those tools as well. And Setzi has some other web pages here that I wanted to show you the resource for that summarize some of these tools. Yeah, so like you can go to our web page now and just see what are our Read Aloud tools that we summarize. And here's some of the assistive tech tools there with links as well. So oftentimes our e-course will refer back to the website that we've created. So now I'm going to go back to, I showed you number 4. Let's go to number 5. Providing access to digital books. You can kind of see the same sequence of objectives, overview. And again, you know, a lot of people aren't aware of all the free digital books that are out there already. So we talk about the free digital books. We have another web page here, access to storybooks, that talks about that. And I think some of these links, I might need to make sure they're opening in a new tab. And I think that might be part of the issue. So, but you can see here, we have a lot of links to some of these free digital book resources. And then Libby, we want to make sure every student knows how to use the Libby app and hopefully has access in their school district for general library, you know, ebooks and audiobooks. And then Bookshare, for those of you who have students that qualify for Bookshare, it's a really must-have for students that have print disabilities. And it talks more here about what is Bookshare, how do you get involved, how do you sign students up. So once if the free tools aren't robust enough, Bookshare is a wonderful support that's provided free to students with qualifying disabilities. So we want to make sure you can see that. And I think we have one more section here. Yeah, and then this one, converting printed text to an accessible digital format. So again, some videos, the main 3 tools, Microsoft Lens, Claro PDF Pro, SnapType Pro, how to use those. And then this is the one I wanted to highlight earlier, making worksheets accessible. I think this is a really good thing to know about because we often hit the barrier right there. A student receives a printed worksheet or a printed book and they can't read it. Now what? Because maybe it hasn't been created as a digital curriculum resource in the district yet, but they can very quickly convert it using some of these tools and resources. So making sure you're up on that, and that might be a great place to get buy-in because everyone has the same issue with the worksheet thing. And let's see.
And fun tip, I just went to a copy machine with a worksheet and slapped it on. It was one that a student needed to use Read Aloud with. Put it on my copy machine. I wanted to send it as an email to me, right? And have it read. Sometimes we do that and it still shows up as a picture that the text reader can't read. So you just have to find searchable PDF, and the copy machine can send a document to you as a searchable PDF. So that allows then text to speech to be able to see that text.
Yeah. Okay, so you kind of you get a visual for how this is sequenced, pretty similar for each one with different resources. So we talked about assuring digital content can be read aloud, providing access to digital books, and converting printed text to digital, accessible digital. So let's just go back and talk about that for a minute. I feel like I wanted to share this video with you because Microsoft Lens is free to everyone and it works really well. It's one of the best free apps that you can use. The other 2 that I talk about are paid apps on a phone, but this is free. So let's just take a look at how this might be used in the classroom, and we'll have a quick video here.
Office Lens is a great app to use with struggling readers or ELL students. Let me show you how easy it is to use. Once you open the app, take a photo of the text you wish to use and crop it as needed. Skip over the editing tools, hit Done, and then scroll to the bottom. You will see the option to share to Immersive Reader. Click this option and Immersive Reader will open directly within the app.
Dear Editor, lately, there has been a lot of concern in our community about robots and automated processes taking over human jobs.
Once Immersive Reader is pulled up, you can change the speed and the sound and those types of features. But check out this app today and let me know what you think.
Okay. So sometimes it's just a quick share like this. It gives you a quick intro to what an app can do. And I love how, again, this is how you use it on the fly in the classroom. The Lens app would be helpful with older students. Maybe the ones who are reluctant to use a C-pen might give them a choice. Yeah. There's a lot to investigate and learn. That's why we wanted this to be self-paced in the end. If you take the course, which I'm giving you an overview of, you can get, you can take hours, you can focus on some sections and not others. You can take it to your interest level. So now we're going to talk about captioning and translation. Okay, how timely is that? We were just getting into that. And I think in the past, my experience has been the special ed, when I was working with special ed folks, they're kind of like, well, that's for somebody else. I'm not responsible for captioning or translation, but really it's for all of us. Anyone that's teaching a lesson now needs to be aware of this, because we all have students that can benefit from it. So closed captioning to improve engagement. And then there's ways to caption videos, like if you're making videos and they're not captioned up front, how do you make them on a video? But the easy one is that you can just upload it to YouTube, and YouTube will do a free version of captioning for you. May not be perfect, but it's pretty darn good. And at least it's one way to make it accessible. So here again, depending on what you use, sorry, I'm scrolling here. Here's the YouTube closed captioning. So anything you've uploaded to YouTube, you can easily turn on closed captioning with one little click of a button. And this tells you how. And then if you're a Google district, you might want to make sure you know how to do captioning on Google Slides. So here's a little tip on that. And of course, if you're a Microsoft, if you're using Microsoft Teams and PowerPoint, how can you do live translated captions there? And you saw me demo that earlier when I didn't mean to. Within PowerPoint, it's pretty easy to turn on captioning right there. And then here's our little, what does it look like in the classroom tip for you. So just a quick visual on what's there. You might want to, if you're going to dive into this course deeper, just commit that maybe you're going to look at one of these tools in one of these platforms that you think might be most applicable to you. And then just kind of, another fun tip on this section is making sure you have a wireless headset with a microphone when you're teaching closed captioning, because if you're talking and the computer has to translate your voice, the further you are from the speaker, the harder it's going to be to translate accurately. So if you have something right up against your mouth, like something like this, it's going to translate more accurately. So that's going to be pretty important to have a good experience with closed captioning. Okay, and let's look at translation briefly. Again, similar here with translation. Each of the platforms kind of has their own tools. So for Microsoft, it's Translator. And this is a great video about how to use Translator in education, whether you're using it to communicate with a parent, conduct a meeting, do a training. There's ways to use that in all those circumstances. And then in Google Translate, there's some ideas on how you might use that. Although, yeah, they're both a little bit different. Some are better than the other, depending on the circumstances and how you're going to use them. But again, this is more like, did you know these exist, and have you taken the time to investigate them? And here, again, if you want to work on the Google Translate, you can read about it here, watch a quick video, or watch this video, which are all different ways. So knowing that throughout this course, you have choices on how you interact with the content. If you're a reader and you like visual, you can read it. If you like watching videos, there's lots of opportunities there. So you don't have to do everything. You do the things that appeal to you the most and that meet your learning style the best. So we would love input if you decide to go more and deeper into this on what worked best for you here or what were challenges. I was going to show you this, and it's kind of a cool, just a video of a teacher working with someone who's hearing impaired. And at first they were having to write down, go back and forth with a notepad and write down the translation. And then they set up Translator with the iPad, and pretty soon they were having a conversation that was almost seamless because they were able to type and speak back and forth using a computer and an iPad. So a pretty cool story. You can look at that later if you take the course. It's right in there. So let's just take a second here before we do the final section and thinking about captioning and translation. What are some thoughts that come to your mind that you heard, or questions that might have come up here as you listen to that topic? And again, these are meant to be teasers to get you to want to learn more, right? So some might be familiar, some of this might be, wow, I haven't really had a chance to dive into this. Maybe this is going to be my focus area. Julie says, I have a friend that can't have captions because then he tries to read it too much instead of just listening. Okay. So sometimes people benefit from listening and seeing things at the same time. Other times it's too much of a distraction. It's interesting you said that, because for a while for SETC webinars, we were trying to caption everything from the instructor side. And for some people that was helpful. And for other people, it got to be too distracting. So it's awesome that now Zoom allows you to turn it on if you need it and prefer it or not. And so then it's on the user to decide what works best for them, right? Instead of me as, the presenter deciding that everyone needs it. So good. Yeah, and as Kristen said, we do free tech assist. So if you want to dive in deeper to some of this, but you need help to get started, we can meet with you and advise you on that. Okay. All right. So just a couple more cool tools that I want to make sure you see. Oh, there's a classroom story. The AIM support documents and forms. So we created a couple of these forms that I wanted to show you. So let me just go into the course first. Here we are. And you can navigate from the bottom or top of each page. So we're going to go next. Actually, I went too far ahead. So designing accessible documents, I'll just kind of peruse the overview, and I kind of knew we weren't going to get through all of it today, but this is super important for if you as a teacher are creating content for your students, even in a Word doc or in a Google Doc. Do you know how to make sure that's accessible for everybody, especially even people that are visually impaired, like the girl that you saw in the video, making sure that she can use a screen reader with it. So we definitely, we learned about Microsoft Accessibility Checker being kind of the superior tool for, doing a check on your document and telling you what needs to happen. And then we have some before and after. Here's what it looks like before when it's not accessible. Here's what it looks like after. Yeah, and then we have some tips here that are great. And this one's kind of cool. This one came out from CAST again, Center for Applied Special Technologies, which is kind of the expert national organization on this topic. And they just kind of had some quick tips that are just right there for you to see. So that's a good one to refer back to. And let's give you a couple more peruses. Tools to support writing and accessible documents. We talked about that earlier. Again, always starting with the free writing support tools, what's built into the 3 platforms. And then Kristen talked about providing options for expression. So here, some different options from graphic organizers to using audio notes and voice notes to word prediction. We did talk about speech to text. And then what about making a movie or making a book or sentence building? So, and then we added some alternative pencil is more geared towards students with high needs that maybe are in a wheelchair and aren't able to touch or express, and they need to use eye gaze or some other way to indicate their preferences. So we want to make sure there's lots of choices here for students of all abilities to express. And then here's a quick video that I also had in the PowerPoint, but it's here for you to view later. So that's just a quick thing on writing. And then I'm going to skip over this one, but this is great that the National ADA Network has a whole series of videos on kind of the legal. If you need to show something to administrators, or I know there's a couple administrators here, these will convince you about why this is so necessary and even, legally necessary. And it has some great backup for you on how do you address that. So I chose 3 that I thought were really important here. But I'm not going to show you those, but that's why we put that section in there. This is really getting into the why. And if you're doing, if you need to spend money on making sure your website is accessible and your curriculum for your students, and you need to convince others, here's some of the requirements. And lastly, I wanted to show you, we created this technology accessibility profile, and I want to open this. It's also attached right here. And I have it saved right there. And what this is, if you want to sit down with your team and just kind of go through, where are we as a district? What does our learning management system look like? What do we have access to? What's built in? What operating system are we on? What accessible technology do we have? Could be built in or third party. And you saw some of those examples in the course. And then what about accessible curriculum content? So thinking about the curriculum. So this is going to be huge, but the conversation might help you figure out where's a place you can start as a district. And then looking at, your assistive technology tools, maybe for students that have it on their IEP and you need to comply. So it's just a 2-page form that's for you to use as a tool to kind of determine where you are as a district. And we're almost out of time here, so I'm going to try to wrap it up. Okay, and the last thing is this AIM. Yeah, our AIM checklist, which Kristen created. Same kind of thing. Back here. Again, a quick form that should be super helpful to see what do you need to consider if you're looking at your educational materials and stuff. So all this is accessible to you. You can download these forms and use them. You can do any parts of this course. So you're not limited to having to do it all or nothing in this format that we have right now, unless you want to do it for clock hours. And so I'll just say that we're partnering with OSPI to offer this course for clock hours through the e-learning Canvas platform. And they are working on it right now, and we're hoping it'll be launched here next month in October of 2023. So as it stands now, anything you see here and you have links to in our this page, I should put that in the, I don't know if I actually put that in the chat window. I think I forgot. I'll just put that there for you. You can access this immediately and use it, but it's not tied to clock hours in its current form unless you take it as an e-learning course. Thank you guys for coming today.